Sometimes in life we believe we must carry every burden alone. We think asking for help is a sign of weakness, something that makes us look incapable in front of others. But what if that stubborn belief is actually the biggest obstacle standing between us and our dreams? The story you are about to hear is about a young man named David who believed he had to do everything by himself. Along the way he discovered his limits, but more importantly, he learned that asking for help does not mean you have failed. In fact, sometimes it is the very step that leads you closer to success. In a small village surrounded by green fields and rocky roads, lived a young man named David. Most people in the village were farmers who worked hard every day just to survive. David, who was 23 years old, worked as a carpenter. He had learned the craft from his late father and continued running the small workshop his father once owned. The shop was old and small, with a roof that leaked whenever it rained. Every day David worked alone, building chairs, repairing old tables, and dealing with customers who always tried to bargain for a lower price. After all his hard work, the money he earned was barely enough to buy food and firewood for the winter. Even though life was difficult, David carried a big dream in his heart. In the quiet evenings, he would sit beside the small window of his shop and look toward the distant hills. He imagined a future where he owned a large furniture store and people from many towns would travel just to buy his furniture. But many villagers laughed at his dream. One farmer once told him, "David, you can barely afford good wood, and you're dreaming of a big store." Those words hurt him deeply, but David refused to give up. One day, an elderly traveler named Mr. Aziz visited David's workshop. He was a merchant known for his wisdom and experience. After looking at David's work, he asked him to build a large dining table within 1 week. It was the biggest order David had ever received, and the payment was good. David immediately started working, but after a few days he ran into a serious problem. He ran out of wood. When he went to the supplier, he discovered that the price of wood had doubled because winter was coming. With the little money he had, David could only afford half of what he needed. He thought about asking Mr. Aziz for help, but his pride stopped him. That night, David sat alone in his workshop, staring at the few coins left on his table. For a moment he wondered if chasing his dream was foolish. Then he remembered his mother's words. Every big achievement begins with a small step. Don't be afraid to start, no matter how difficult things seem. The next morning, David gathered a few small folding chairs he had made and took them to the city market to sell them. It was a risky decision, because if nobody bought them, he wouldn't even have enough money to return home. 4 hours no one paid attention to his stall. But around noon, a wealthy woman stopped and admired the quality of his work. She ended up buying all the chairs. With the money he earned, David bought the wood he needed and returned to the village. He completed Mr. Aziz's table on time, and the merchant was very impressed. Soon word about David's craftsmanship began to spread, and he started receiving more orders. One day a businessman from the city gave David a huge opportunity. He asked him to build 10 dining tables within 1 month. It was a big chance, but also a huge challenge, because David had no workers and a very small workshop. At first he tried to do everything alone, working day and night without rest. His hands became sore and his body grew weak. Seeing this, his mother gently placed her hand on his shoulder and said something that would change his life. She told him that life was never meant to be lived alone, and that asking for help is not weakness but wisdom. The next day, for the first time, David asked the villagers for help. To his surprise, they all came forward willingly. Friends and neighbors worked together in his workshop, and soon all the tables were finished on time. The businessman was very pleased and paid him exactly what he promised. With that money, David expanded his workshop, bought new tools, and even hired a few young men from the village. But the greatest thing David gained was not money. It was the lesson that dreams are not achieved by strength alone. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply ask for help.